Okay, most of you by now already know that Heather Piszar is mom to Sarah. You might not know that Sarah has a twin brother and 2 other brothers. Sarah's been very involved from the very beginning in advocating, or Heather has, I'm sorry, in advocating for Sarah. She's gone through training for advocacy at Eastern Michigan University. Is that that's right?
From the Art.
Oh, from the Art of Michigan, I'm sorry. Anyway, so now she is certified through them. She's also a member of her PTA, and I believe now is president of the PTA. So let's all welcome Heather Piszar.
Thank you, Debbie. When Debbie asked me to speak, she asked me if I'd be interested in doing a session on advocacy and IEPs, and I thought, okay, I could handle like a breakout session for 30 people. And then as I learned the numbers of the conference attendees, and it got up to like 200, I thought, this is a lot bigger than what I was thinking. But it's been so fantastic to see everyone here this weekend, and I'm sure just like me, all of you have been tremendously blessed by everything that we've heard from the speakers and the doctors and just each other. So to this session, the purpose is to encourage parents to advocate for their children and to discuss the IEP process. Well, as I was thinking about how to put it all together, I thought about my own journey as an advocate, and it was really special education and IEPs that took me to advocacy. So I thought we'd start with IEPs. So, IEP. Most of you who have school-age children, and some of you who have children who are younger and maybe through early intervention or early on programs are familiar with the term IEP, and that would be individual or individualized education plan. Special education varies state to state, so what one child and family is receiving can be totally different than what another is, but we can still look at some principles in general. If your child has an IEP, your child needs an IEP, an involved, educated parent. And yep, that's a little play on words there, but in all seriousness, it's really something we have to take on. We need to be involved and we need to be educated. I think that's important whether we have children with disabilities or not, but it's even more important when you add the complexity of special education and any potentially challenging medical conditions like our kids have. This can be really hard if you have little kids at home, and it's everything that you can do to maybe just get a shower every day. So I just want to give you 2 suggestions for kind of finding a way to do that. I would say ask questions and tap into any of the resources that you have. So when you're at doctor's appointments and when you're talking to your child's therapist and your child's teacher, and you hear terms you don't understand, jot them down and ask them, because most of the time, because they've studied so much and it's a passion of theirs, they're more than willing to share that wisdom with you. And then just try to carve out 10, 20 or more minutes a day reading current research and getting online and just kind of looking around to find out more information you can about therapies and programs related to your child's specific needs. I want to read this statement. This is from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004. It says, Congress finds the following. Disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. I love this for 2 reasons. It says disability is a natural part of the human experience. So all this that we're going through is normal, it really is. And it's also part of our national policy to give our children equal opportunities. Okay, moving on to IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004. This is the federal mandate that directs states to put into play special education programs. And like I said before, that varies state to state. So what it looks like is kind of dependent on the legislation that's put into place by your state. It's important to look at both the federal and the state laws because, like, for example, in Michigan, special education takes place from birth to age 26. And that's not the case in other states, and even at the federal level, I think it's only required up to age 22. So you kind of have to look at both laws, and so that's another kind of added challenge for us, because I'm not a lawyer and I didn't go to school, but the more you read and review and talk to experts, the more you clearly understand. The IEP document, this is required by that IDEA. It's required for every student who's eligible for special education services each year. It identifies the goals and the programs and services that your student's going to receive. It's put together by an IEP team, and that meeting needs to be held annually. In the end, your IEP is your legal document from the school district that's going to tell you, this is what we're giving this child, this is what this child needs, these are the supports and services that they're going to receive. The IEP process is made up of, I call this the PLAF, and I used to call it the bad statement. This is called the present level of academic achievement and functional performance. I called it the bad statement because you want it to sound as bad as it really is, so that you get the services that you need. The next thing we talk about are goals and objectives, accommodations and modifications, and then supports and services. An IEP needs to be SMART, and that stands for specific, measurable, action words, realistic and relevant, and time-related. If you look in the handout that you were given, one of the pages looks like this. It's a blank form. And I'm just going to go through each of these. The PLAF. This is where we actually, the IEP, Sarah's IEP is 17 pages long. I don't know what they look like in each of your states. The PLAF is about 4 pages. It didn't start out that way though when she started in special education, but that's where it is now, and I really like the way it's changed in Michigan over the years, because now when we look at that, it's not really the bad statement. It is, but we talk about strengths and weaknesses. We talk about what helps the child learn, what gets in the way of learning. You can include objective and current evaluations. Maybe you've had an annual review, or we have a 3-year, what we call, I think, 3-year MET, and that's like a psychological evaluation where they determine eligibility. Those kind of evaluations can be included in there, and then you talk about how the disability affects progress and access to general curriculum. Moving on to goals and objectives, this is where you're going to talk about the skills that your student needs to learn. And I said before that the IEP needs to be SMART, the goals also need to be SMART. So I can't write on it, or I shouldn't write on an IEP, and I'm not creating these goals, but I would give input, so the teachers are coming up with these goals based on grade level content expectations. If they were to say, Sarah will use a fork, that's just way too vague, and that's not SMART. It needs to be specific, like Sarah will use a fork to pierce food and take it to her mouth. And then how often is she going to have success with that? 75%? What time period are we going to be working on this? Using action words and things like that, so that it's not just so general, and you can actually measure, was there progress on that goal? Accommodations and modifications. This is how the program needs to be adjusted or changed for your specific child. An accommodation is a change to help a student with a task, and a modification is a change to what is being taught or expected. So to kind of think, most of the time those are used interchangeably, unfortunately, and so it can be confusing. Accommodations, if you think about it in terms of a ball game, an accommodation would level the playing field, but a modification would change the field. Finally, we do supports and services, and that's OT, PT, speech, whatever. This is where your nursing plan can go into place, and like if you're going to ask for a harness on the bus, a nurse on the bus, things like that. In the end, what you get on that document is what your child gets, and that's your legal document that you can use to hold the school district accountable. So here are some hints, tips, and suggestions. I like to request evaluations in advance. I learned this the hard way. I used to go to Sarah's IEP meetings alone, and I hadn't requested reports in advance, and we'd sit at a table, and it felt very much, and I'm not saying that it was, but it felt very much like it was me against them. And I'd sit and listen as each support person went around the table and read their report on how my child was struggling, and how far behind she was, and what she needed to learn. And that's very painful when you haven't processed all the emotions. It's even painful when you have. So I would like stifle it and then cry all the way home. So I learned two things. If I ask for my reports in advance, it gives me time to read them at home and think about what I agree with and what I don't. And it takes that time. We don't have to consume that time in the meeting. We can just cut to the chase. If anyone has something they need to bring up in regard to the report, then we can. But otherwise, we assume everybody at the table is all on the same page, and let's cut to it. Let's keep it focused on Sarah. I also encourage parents, and sometimes the document only gives you like 3 lines, parent input and concerns. I like to write up a whole page. So they get that in advance too, because fair's fair. This is where she gets to shine, and I get to say all the wonderful things I want to, and I get to express my concerns about what I'm worried that they're not doing enough of, or what I think where I'd like her to grow. Share that with them, so again, we come to the table, we're all prepared, we're all in the same place. Don't go it alone. Another mistake I made, you just need someone physically there, even if they're not even going to say a word, just for emotional and physical support. That can be your spouse, it could be a friend, it can be a hired advocate, doesn't matter. It could be a parent who's further down the journey and who's done this a million times, and they're just going to sit there, because when you go home and you go, what did they say, because you didn't write it down, and you can call them and say, do you remember? It just gives you, it's someone who's got your back, and so it's really important. So what is an advocate? Well, I'm sure you all know you're all advocates, but this is the dictionary definition. It's one that pleads the cause of another, and that's really what we do when we're asking for something for our child's needs, whether it's through an insurance company, or at a school meeting, or at the doctor's office. I love these synonyms: defender, supporter, true believer, okay? That's us. So advocacy is just putting that into action. It's taking that noun and making an action verb, doing it, being in defense, assistant, pleading for. I bet if I asked for a show of hands, every single one of us could think of a time when we did one of those for our child. So why the need to advocate? Because your child has rights. ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, grant those rights to them. And because you know your child best, and because you care about the welfare of your child as a parent, you are just a natural bent toward advocacy. Plus, the law gives you power to make decisions and have your child's best interests in heart. Parents are an integral part of this disability rights movement, and don't make any mistake about it, it's a civil rights movement. It's not just about disability, this is about people. There are some obstacles to being a successful advocate. Excuse me. The first one, I think, is hurt. A lot of times we just have not processed what we feel, and kind of the surprise and all the emotion that goes along with finding out that we have a child with a significant disability. When you are trying to accomplish something and you haven't taken care of that, then what you're trying to do kind of keeps getting blocked by those emotions. The other is anger. If you come to any kind of meeting and you are spouting out at the other people, it's going to put them on the defense right away, and that's going to reduce your effectiveness as an advocate. Sometimes inaccurate information is an obstacle, where we heard so-and-so is getting such and such a service, and I want my child to get that. Well, again, then when you find out you had it all wrong, and now you just kind of made yourself look bad, and so you got to get all your information ahead of time. Failing to prepare, we've all heard that, is preparing to fail, so go in prepared. And then being prepared would also recognize that there are some obstacles that are beyond us, that are outside of us. The school culture, you know, maybe the school system just has a way that they do things and it's not necessarily right, and so you may have to reteach that culture or beliefs. A one-size-fits-all program that's really good for schools and it's actually easy, but if you think about IEP, individualized, one-size-fits-all is not individualized. And sometimes they see parents as the problem, not part of the solution. So we really need to try to make sure they understand we are part of the team and we want to be part of the solution to help our child thrive and do their very best. Ways to advocate. So you can be an advocate for your child on a very personal level by going to IEP meetings, defending them through insurance claims, or helping them out at doctor's appointments. And then you can take it to the next level and advocate on a community level. So getting involved at school, one way or another, PTA, SEPAC is Special Education Parents Advisory Committee, because guess what? They actually do want your advisory. They want to know what's going on. And then talking to people in your community, maybe that's your neighbors or your local leaders, and just helping them understand. Because I think if we all think back to our life before we knew someone with disabilities, you remember you were kind of blissfully ignorant and you didn't know. And so a lot of people are like that. It's our job to educate them. On a local level, talking to your local leaders, going to your senators' coffee hours, things like that. And then there's bazillion local advocacy groups that you can join. Okay, we're wise to seek help when we need it. And I included some of this information in that handout. The first is a pamphlet from the ARC. I love the ARC. And they're very active in Michigan. It's different, I know, state to state, but I would really encourage you to take a look at that and look up your local ARC and see what kind of programs and services are available for in your area. Rights Law is another fantastic organization, and they have advocacy training. They go from state to state. They do not hit every state in every year, but it's not cheap, but it's not outrageously expensive, and you can attend a conference and they give you resources. Both of these organizations have listservs you can sign up to get email, like weekly or monthly, I'm not sure, and that will give you current information on advocacy and all kinds of issues related to special education services and things like that. That's what the other part in your pamphlet looks like. And then the yellow pages.
I'm sorry, did anyone not get a handout?
Did anyone not get a handout? If you raise your hand, remember we'll bring you on. The yellow pages for kids with disabilities, that you can access that through Rights Law as well, and you just click to your state and it gives you all kinds of lists of those different supports. And finally, my charge to you is to just do it. And I'm not talking about Nike. I'm just saying we need to do this because the need for our children is so great. And I recognize that it is challenging, but each of us has a child in our life who cannot speak for themselves. And then remember, it's not just, like for me, it's not just for Sarah. It's for all of your kids as well, and it's for all individuals with disabilities. And that goes back to what I said before about this being a civil rights movement. The disability rights movement is really moved forward by individuals who can self-advocate, and then the parent movement. And the parent movement is so important, and so my charge to you would just be to keep that momentum going. I want to show you two resources real quick, and then I have a final something for you to see. This is one of the books that I got from Rights Law. It's called From Emotions to Advocacy. So is it anyone's birthday today? Is it anyone's birthday this week? This month? Okay, I have two people. So and this is the other one that I have. It's called Special Education Law, and I think if you just tuck that under your arm when you go into IEP meetings, pretty much good to go. And I would add, just remember, your teachers and your special ed director, they didn't go to law school, so sometimes they don't even know the law. And it's not because they want to do this wrong, it's just that that's not what their education is. So sometimes they don't even realize and they don't even know what they need to be doing to meet the needs of these kids. And I know their heart is in the right place, but they just don't always know. Okay, one more thing for you. So this is the final statement that I did for Leaders in Policy Advocacy. Of course, the sentiment is, the words are mine, but I think the sentiment will resonate with all of you, hopefully, and that you'll enjoy this.